Point of View is brought to you in association with Stanbic Bank, moving forward, and Glofert Company Limited, growing growth.
Welcome to The Point of View. Tonight we're going straight into the budget. It's budget day. Minister of Finance went to Parliament with his brown bag, and The Point of View tonight has the right issue, of course, is the budget. But we have a very exciting panel for you, but it's live and interactive. If you're watching online, our hashtag is Point of View. We're on Facebook. You can comment on the video stream beneath. If you're watching on television, we have a WhatsApp number. My name is Bernard. Thank you for staying with CCTV. When we come back, I'll tell you who my panel is. So earlier today, Minister of Finance Ken Ofori-Atta presented what we call the supplementary budget. But he also spoke about how far the economy had come. And he requested for 6.3 billion cedis more to do some important things. Tonight we're trying to understand the mind of the minister and the state of the economy. It's been 3 years since the MPP was voted into power. How well are they doing managing the economy? And their opposition, the NDC, always have something to say. In fact, they say they have a press conference later this week to show the true state of the economy. My panel includes Member of Parliament for Etiwa East and Deputy Minister for Finance, the Honorable Abena Osei-Asare. Great to have you, Honorable.
Thank you.
Good. We also have MP for Ketu South and a former Minister for Agric and a former Deputy Minister of Finance, Fifi Fiavikwete. Fifi, great to have you. Good evening.
Good evening to you.
And then we have an economist from the Institute of Fiscal Studies. A week ago, they held a press conference and gave their own verdict on some important aspects of our economy. Leslie Dwight Mensah is in with an independent view on the economy. Leslie, great to have you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Great. So, viewers, we want you to tell us what you made of the budget. Did you even understand it at all? Did the finance minister break it down? Which of the tax reliefs did you find most exciting? Which of the tax increments do you find most annoying? And what about the budget is very important to you? Send us your views on the WhatsApp number on the screen. Before we come to the panel, Jessica Ayoko Ayi gives a short summary of what transpired on the floor today.
The finance minister announced that government has increased the fiscal deficit to 4.5% of GDP. According to him, the increase will not affect government debt sustainability measures, since the figure is still below the 5% threshold given by the IMF. As part of measures aimed at boosting domestic revenue, the communication tax was increased to 9% from 6%.
The communication service tax was introduced in 2008 at an ad valorem rate of 6%. The tax is levied on charges payable by consumers for the use of communication services. Government proposed to increase the tax. Government proposed to increase the tax to 9% to develop the foundation for the creation of a viable technology ecosystem in the country from 6%. This will comprise, among others, putting in systems to identify and combat cybercrime, protect users of information technology, and combat money laundering and other financial crimes. The increase will not be earmarked, however. The sharing ratio will be adjusted in such a manner that the National Youth Employment Program continue to receive the same proportion as they are currently receiving.
Meanwhile, the energy sector levies was also increased to 20 pesos per litre for petrol and diesel and 8 pesos per kg for LPG, to help increase the inflows for government to issue additional bonds to pay down the energy sector debt.
We are facing serious challenges in the energy sector that, Mr. Speaker, pose grave financial risk to the whole economy. At the heart of these challenges, Mr. Speaker, are the obnoxious take-or-pay contracts signed by the NDC, which obligate us to pay for capacity we do not need. We must urgently, Mr. Speaker, address these challenges to protect the hard-earned economic gains we have made in the past 2.5 years and continue with our economic growth and job agenda to improve the lives of Ghanaians. Mr. Speaker, this supplementary budget therefore proposes a number of bold measures to confront the issues to ensure that the energy sector delivers the services required by Ghanaians while maintaining financial viability. To be specific, Mr. Speaker, the two main issues confronting the sector are, firstly, the excess electricity generation which was procured during the NDC regime from independent power producers, including emergency power producers, at exorbitant prices under flawed take-or-pay contracts. Currently, according to the Energy Commission, the country has installed power generation capacity of 5,083 megawatts, dependable capacity of 4,593 megawatts, and peak demand, Mr. Speaker, of around 2,700 megawatts. So, Mr. Speaker, our installed capacity is almost double our peak demand. Notably, 2,300 megawatts of the installed capacity has been contracted on a take-or-pay basis. On average, Mr. Speaker, less than 40% of the contracted take-or-pay capacity is actually used, meaning that we are basically throwing away money by paying for the remaining 60% of excess capacity, which we do not actually consume.
Providing some relief for vehicle owners, Mr. Ofori-Atta announced that government has decided to withdraw the luxury vehicle tax introduced in the 2018 mid-year budget.
Mr. Speaker, review of luxury vehicles levy. Government in 2018 introduced the luxury vehicles levy to raise revenue. We have noted suggestions from the general public on the implementation of this tax, and Mr. Speaker, as a listening government, we are proposing to the House the withdrawal of the luxury tax levy. We will, Mr. Speaker, continue to improve compliance, expand the tax nets, and explore other innovative sources of raising revenue.
So that was Jessica Ayokwa's report with Ken Ofori-Atta. So happily we have the Deputy Minister for Finance in charge of budget. So this is actually your work. Fifi, when you were Deputy Minister, were you in charge of budget those years?
No.
You were in charge of agents?
Yeah, I was in charge of, Seth was in charge of budget, I was in charge of financial sector.
So usually three, there's the revenue agencies, there's the budget, and then there's the financial sector. So in our case, you are in charge of budget. And then Charles is in charge of, Charles Edubwine is in charge of the financial services.
Financing.
And then Kweku Kwatin's taxes.
Yes.
So you prepare this budget with the minister. This is your work. So why are you asking for more money? What is the, give us some quick background to why, or is it just an annual ritual? Every year we do budget and we do supplementary. Or did you actually need the 6.3 billion?
Thank you very much, Bernard. I think today we released the mid-year budget review as well as a revision of the 2019 budget estimates.
Okay.
And in this, government sought to tell Ghanaians. We gave an indication of the macroeconomic indicators. We also gave an indication of the revenues that we have earned so far and the expenditure and how the deficit is looking like, and also going forward, how we want to implement the budget for the rest of the year. And in that, we told Ghanaians that, yes, we have achieved a percentage of the revenue, and we have also, within our expenditure, we have stayed within the target, but the expenditure is a bit higher than the revenues that we're looking to accrue for implementation of the 2019 budget.
Okay. And
so the deficit has gone up a bit. And this is as a result of several things. Major amongst them is that of energy and the financial sector bailout. So looking at all these things, and also this government being a listening government and wanting to address the needs of the people at the same time, also consolidating the macroeconomic gains that we have made, and thought it wise to introduce some measures that will help us balance the two. So that is the reason why we believe that we should take some out after listening to the people of Ghana and come up with more compliant measures that will help us increase it. But at the same time, there are other areas that we believe that levying the people of Ghana to pursue these priority programs that will benefit the larger population. I think that is where we are looking at. Pursue priority programs that will benefit the larger population. Like we have seen an increase in the school feeding from 1.6 million to 2.1 million. We have seen the disbursement of the LEAP funds to a larger population. And also we have introduced NAPCO that is taking 100,000 tertiary graduates who have stayed at home for a very long time and are losing their skills and experience to sort of help. It's like a bridge to fill in that gap, that experience gap. All these things will require money, will require a lot of funds. So, and then lastly, the huge bit, which is the energy sector issues. That currently, as we speak, government has had to pay 3.1 billion. And looking at all these things, Bernard, you will have no option than to try and raise
extra revenue.
Extra revenue domestically to help you achieve these things, whilst you still want to maintain.
So you don't think asking for more money suggests that you are mismanaging the economy in any way, or that your estimates were wrong at all?
Not at all. One, like we told you, the energy sector, these are IPPs that have crystallized, and so one, you need to pay. Like my minister said this afternoon, that the Dumsor era is gone, but you will need funds to maintain the way we have our electricity now, and so certainly you will need some amount of extra revenue. And looking at the financial sector, we all know what happened. Government has had to cough up 11.2 billion to 2.6 million depositors. Bernard, if government hadn't come in, we all know what would have happened to, these depositors. We all know what happened in 2016. God is love and the other people. Some even lost their lives because, they lost huge sums of money. And the government is coming in. Currently, as we speak, government has paid for the banking sector. About 1.5 million people have received their deposits. And also in the micro finance area, about 1.2 million people have received. All these things will require funds and require money. And these are not things that were planned, These things have happened. What do? I don't think as a listening government, as a government that is ready to work, you will sit down and throw your hands in despair. There are innovative ways that you can help address these concerns. So as we are paying these things, we are also streamlining the banking sector regulations so that these things do not occur again. But currently, as we are now, we need the funds to address these issues.
So if I understand what you're saying, your revenue didn't come up as you expected, and because of additional expenditure, you have had to ask for more money. And part of the need for more money has come from poorly negotiated power deals, which the previous government put together, which the finance minister sought to emphasize, as well as the banking sector cleanup and other things we've been doing. So you've squarely thrown the issue to the NDC because they are the opposition. Yet, if you listen to the minister, it's as if he's blaming them for the challenges in the power sector in particular. Should we understand it that part of the reason you came to the floor to ask for more money is the IPPs and the take or pay gas arrangements, which you say have put the country in a very difficult position? Yeah. Should we take it that way?
Bernard, we are asking for an increase in appropriation of about 6.3 billion Ghana cedis. And 5.1 billion is to go into the energy sector. So, you yourself should make that deduction. 5.1 billion out of the 6.3 that we are asking for the increase in appropriation.
5 out of 6.
5.1 billion is going into
the energy
sector. And the other 1 billion part is going into the road sector, the other part is going into the agric infrastructure sector, and also and school feed and other things that we believe that will help stabilize.
Okay, so you have to respond to that, because they've squarely put the issue within the remit of the power sector, that the deals are unsustainable, take or pay is not good, and she's saying that 5 out of that 6 billion is going to the energy sector, so I can make the deduction. Do you concede that your poor judgment as a former government put us in this mess?
Thank you very much. And Ben, I think this is the first time I'm on your program, so let me use the opportunity and greet all your many viewers.
Is this your first time too?
I think so. I think the first time I've
yes,
you.
both of you. Okay, you are welcome.
On CCTV, but on your program, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, on CCTV in particular.
Good.
And I use the opportunity to greet my very good friend.
And also greet my outgoing
MP. Okay.
And also my brother as well. Yeah, Ben, I listened to the Minister of Finance very carefully today. And as I watch him, I couldn't help but feel a great deal of sympathy. I felt a great deal of sympathy. You know, this is a typical case of you reach a moment where it becomes pretty obvious to the world that your very demeanor betrays just one thing, that talk is cheap. I've done the cheap talk, now the reality has dawned, and I have to actually do the backtracking. But at the same time, I'm not humble enough to make an admission that I got it wrong. So I have to come and find ways of blaming somebody in order to justify what it is I'm coming to do. And I feel this is totally self-inflicted, completely self-inflicted. Our friends in the NPP did not need to go the path they went. Why? Because they've had 80 years of experience in power in this fourth Republican constitution. So they are not novices. If it were a party that had never had an opportunity to be in power, I could understand why, for example, they needed to go broke, make promises that absolutely did not even make any logical meaning, and then come into office and start what you call the series of contradictions and inconsistencies. That's exactly what it is we have seen. Ben, you don't need to be a professor in economics to simply understand that when it is, for example, you say that I'm not going to resort to taxation, that's on one hand. And on the other hand, I'm actually going to multiply the expenditure because there are so many big programs that I'm coming to do, some of them social in nature, giving things that are free, and doing all the other infrastructural things, actually more. Now, it simply shows that something has to give. Because how can you, in one breath, claim you are coming to reduce expenditure? You're coming to reduce what you call revenues. You're coming taxation, which will affect your revenue, increase expenditure, and somehow you also create the impression that you really are not going to resort to borrowing. And somehow you expect to be able to make it happen. Clearly.
So let me understand. You're saying they said they will reduce taxation. And then they will spend on, they will increase expenditure in key areas and also not borrow.
Not borrow. So you understand?
You think that's an impossibility?
It's an impossibility.
If you reduce corruption and the wastage, can't you do that?
You see, that actually is what it is. That is the easy way people who really want to just play to the gallery go. And of course, they did a bit of that. But in terms of even that corruption thing, I mean, you and I will know, for example, the recent report of the CDD showed that between 2017 to today, minimum of 9.6 billion cedi had been lost as a result of corruption. It tells you that the fight in terms of protecting the public purse and reducing corruption has been totally lost. In fact, not just lost, it has become much more compounded. So
is
that
what,
is an avenue that's
corruption
gone.
or grand corruption?
Obviously, 9.6 billion must be great.
I see.
I mean, for 3 years, that's huge. If NPP government had access to 9.6 additional billions of CD now, they will not have to.
So you said they set themselves an impossible task.
Absolutely. And why did they do so? Simply because they were desperate for power. And that's what I'm saying. If there were novices who had never been in office, I can appreciate that. But because they had been in office, they obviously must have known. So that tells you the extent to the political desperation that drove them to literally doing this thing that today has come back to haunt them. Now, and to make it worse, is that when they came into office, the very first budget, what did they do? They played to the gallery. They came and reduced all kinds of taxes.
Nuisance taxes.
They claim nuisance taxes. You know, it came and reduced and reduced. So we're expecting the population to be jubilating. And people were jubilating all over the place. We, in that same budget debate, told them that, listen, it's not going to be long. You'll come back to this house, you'll come and increase taxes. Because what you're doing, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to know that this is leading you nowhere. You're going to be in difficulty. I would say, no, we have the man. We've got a magical capacity to find the money, to find the revenue. Today, where are we? They are back exactly where we predicted they were going to be. I'm saying never again in the history of Ghana should any Ghanaian fall prey to this, what I call dangerous line. The desperation that makes you to say things just to get power. Never again. In the history of Ghana, that should never happen again.
Can you address the power issue now? You've made a foundation.
I wanted to build a point in order to come to that. Now, to respond to that appropriately, let me give you a little reminder. In 2009, and I think it was not actually even up to even the first 6 months, I think somewhere around April 2009, then candidate Nana Akufo-Addo that had lost election to Prof. Mills. In the wake of issues relating to the difficulties that the NDC had met, Nana Akufo-Addo actually declared, stop lamenting, fix the economy. Stop lamenting over what the NPP had done and fix the economy. That actually is the appropriate reminder to our friends in the NPP. Almost 3 years is gone. You are still talking increasingly about what had happened before you. It's time to stop the talk and fix it. As Nana Akufo-Addo told. That exactly is what.
But do you admit your role in it? Do you admit your role in it?
I'm coming.
We do have
let me give you. I know, but you know, I'm trying to explain the issue. Let me give you a typical example. Between 2013 all the way to the close of 2015, this country faced an unprecedented energy crisis, which you are aware. And that was the biggest in our history. And the cause of that was simple. A massive, what you call, mismatch between our capacity to generate power and the demand for power. Now, remember, this lack of capacity to generate power was not the product of President Mahama, was not the product of President Mills. Successive government inability to ramp up our capacity to produce power led to that. Meaning 8 years of the NPP contributed to that. Between 2013 to 2016, did you hear President Mahama going all the way blaming NPP? No. What we did was to be like men. We faced the difficulty, which was.
I remember he said it was an act of God. Something happened in some FPS when he said it was an act of God.
I mean, anytime he related to, for example, what you call force majeure. So, for example,
let's go straight to the issue.
No, but that's the point.
Why take or pay?
No, but just hold.
That's the crux of the matter. Isn't it?
The point you must understand is this: when you are in office, like we faced Johnson, what you do is to face up to the issue and solve it.
Why take or pay? Why take or pay?
Let me give you a typical example. Are you aware that the Asogli Phase 1 that MPP procured, that was during the time of President Kufuor, it was on the basis of take or pay?
But we are forgetting the past. We are asking why you did take or pay. We shouldn't go back to...
No, but I'm explaining to you exactly that this take or pay is not what our friends are trying to make it.
So it's normal.
It's a very irregular... Listen, if you come to me, then you are coming to look for what you call a power plant, then you need it to be able to produce power to supply your people. And I'm a private person. And I say, I can give you this one and it can supply you maybe 200 megawatts of power. Now, you take the 200 megawatts of power. And then you expect that if you do not use the whole 200, use only 100, you expect me to be to take that particular expense. It's not my business. I've given the 200 to you. If you use it or you don't use it, that's your matter. And at that time, remember, the reason why we needed to go for this power plant was because, one, the hydro sector had absolutely had a problem.
I see.
Akosombo Dam, that normally gives us excess of about 1,000 to 1,100 megawatts, was producing just 30%. So you needed largely to go for power plant.
So you had no choice.
You had no option.
Let me take Leslie's preliminary thoughts on where we are as an economy, and then we'll come to the take or pay issue. Every year we do supplementary budget, so it's almost like an annual ritual. Do you understand this particular round? Is this
This
one
is the
just...
first time under this government that we're doing a supplementary budget.
Okay, so you do media review.
Yes.
You do media review where you don't... Sorry, you
Yeah.
don't... Thank
According
you.
to the
Thank you.
PFM Act, Section 28.
Yes, thank you.
So it's a media
Do you feel the 6.3 request is justified? And do you understand the reasons they are putting it out? They are asking for the money.
Well, there's a part of that request that I don't deeply understand. And this has to do with the 5.1 billion cedis that is required to pay off the liabilities associated with the so-called take-or-pay IPP contracts. I find it incredible, that we will run up liabilities on IPP contracts to the tune of nearly $1 billion, and this will be imposed on the taxpayer all of a sudden in the mid-year budget. We need some more details into how these contracts were structured. How come we have to pay these liabilities? The cost the government should publish a report on this. We need to see some independent assessment. Okay, so that's 5.1 billion of the 6.3 or so billion. For the remaining 1.2 billion, what I see is that about 900 plus million is going into debt service, interest payments, and the remainder.
Not true?
That is not true.
What is it going into?
Like I said, 200 is going into the road infrastructure. Another 240 is going into the agri sector. And
Sure, markets are actually
yes. Let's look at interest payments. Interest payments.
And then 100 million is also going into the forward operating base, which is a security item I'm trying to
Well,
build.
what he has here is the 2019 adjustment from the revise. And when it comes to interest payments, 952. And then they have a breakdown. Interest payment, domestic, 519. External, 432.
You see the adjustment?
Is this today's document or the original
sure.
document?
It's yes, but what
see the adjustment?
yes,
Yeah, so-
but this is what the supplementary estimates you are presenting to Parliament. This is the breakdown, and this is what I'm giving to you.
How much more are we paying for interest?
Because there's an interest component for domestic 519. Or you don't know where this is
No.
coming from? This is 2019 adjustment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then for interest,
Interest payment.
yeah, this place.
Yeah, the 952.
Yes.
Million, yeah.
952, and then he breaks it down to 500 and 400. So I don't know,
Domestic
unless
and
there's
That's
a
how much
different
more
document.
money we're
External.
spending on interest.
No, yes, but what I'm saying is that the extra 1.2. This is the breakdown of it.
So which one are you looking at? This is your own document.
No, this is the supplementary estimates that you're
That he
going to send to
presented.
the finance committee for the finance committee to look at it and then present it to Parliament.
So this one will go to the committee. This one will go to the committee.
No, we need to tell the finance committee the breakdown, and this is the breakdown
You have.
of the 1.3 billion that we asking for.
Okay, I
The
want to
extra.
show it to the people as well. Main sources of supplementary
Yeah, you
estimates.
can
6.3. So this is for the sake of
No, I think you can call it out for
security. No, these days people are wild. Security. I have to
But the
show it.
forward- the
security
forward,
forward
yeah.
operating base,
Base, yeah.
100. Road infrastructure 200. Agri rearing for food and job and pet 240. School feeding 100.
100 million.
Budget shortfall for independent institutions 90.5.
Parliament and then the judiciary service.
Ghana government service something 217. Africa free trade 62. Amortization of crystallized energy sector payment 5.1 billion. Others 161. Total 6.3.
Thank you.
So at this point,
Well, yeah, well,
So
But-
like you
but
see,
you also
maybe
have this.
government
but
will have to
you see-
publish the
well, you
full
see,
component.
You know why
of-
this? You know why this could be possible? Some of these expenditures may have been pre-funded, okay, from revenues that have been raised already, okay, so that now we're asking for supplementary
Okay.
appropriation to cover,
No.
you know, the
Those that have
resources
been pre-funded, I mean, it's right in there. These are
Well, but
extras
you- well-
that are.
okay, so let's make progress.
Okay,
You
let's
said
make progress,
number
yeah.
one, you don't understand the 5.1.
Yes,
we are
so-
both clear on that.
Yes, that
for the
government will
energy.
have to
Yeah.
publish. a
Now the only
report.
difference is that you are looking
Well,
at
I
the
see
rest
here,
900.
you know, that we're going to spend
900 on interest payment.
953 million cedis more on interest payments, okay, according to the revised budget, relative to the initial budget.
Okay.
Now, how's that going to be funded?
And Abuna, to be fair to him, if you come to paragraph 101,
Yeah.
it says revision to expenditure. Mr. Speaker, total expenditure for 2 years is now estimated at 74.6,
Yes.
about 1.6% higher than 2019 budget estimate of
Sure.
73. Now here's an interesting part. Upward adjustment to interest payments reflect partly the effect of a higher exchange rate than programmed, as well as higher net domestic borrowing to meet some regional emergency security and energy expenses in the first half of the year. So he's bundled a lot of things together here.
Right.
He's saying that he's going to pay more for interest. He's going to spend some money on regional emergency, which is not mentioned here.
Yeah.
And then he's also going to spend some on energy expenses, which is mentioned here.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether this narration is just English, and this is actually the graph.
Say amortization of crystallized energy sector payment. So that's
5.1.
yeah. So that's all
That
part
so
of
the
it.
interest
Yeah.
for the energy sector, you get my point. So you probably need to
That's-
add your
yes.
900 to the 5 billion.
That's all part of
the
it.
5 billion.
The
You mean the
one
interest
point-
payment?
The one no.
Because
the,
they are saying that
interest
it's interest
The
payments for
5.1
debt
is
in
for
energy.
It's not part of it. It's not part
This
of
is
it.
interest payment.
There's an
Two totally different
amortization line.
business.
There's an amortization
So how
line.
come it's not here?
no, it says amortization.
That's why I
There's no
explained
interest
that.
payment
That's why I
here.
explained that with this kind
He
of
said
thing.
it's an amortization line, and what you have here is amortization of crystallized energy sector payments. So it's part of it. But then, like you say,
My point is that
get a
in this
comprehensive
presentation,
report.
there's a separate line for the amortization of 5.2 billion, different from the interest payment.
But the question is, what will be presented to Parliament? You are in Parliament. Would they present this or this one?
The appendix,
The appendix will show
is the
this,
most relevant.
but we
because
will-
that is where the numbers
we will
can
have
be
to
seen.
give the breakdown
listen,
to the
It will
finance
not be- It
committee.
will not be the first time. It will not be the first time in the history of our country, and actually in the history of the NPP, that they will be presenting, for example. I can give you. Let me give you. Let me give you a typical
If
example.
he likes
Let me
those
give you.
things.
No, it's
Yeah.
true.
That-
Let me give you a
okay,
typical
let me
example.
just allow him to.
2018. They went when they were going for the Eurobond.
Yes.
They presented to us exactly what the Eurobond is going to be used for. The amount of which was going to go into infrastructure. At the end of the period, when the breakdown was given, that amount that the claim was going to go into infrastructure did not. So massive amount went into what you call put it through the normal budget stream, which and the real infrastructure was left out.
But Fifi,
So
we also
this will not-
mentioned
this
that
will
we
not
were
be
going
the
to
first
use
time.
some for
No,
budget.
No.
Yeah,
I'm
for
talking
the
about
budget.
the real quantum.
Yes,
The real
I
quantum. You
mean-
didn't go according to the quantum that you
All right,
brought to the finance
I'll take a
committee.
bit. Let's when I come back,
for
I'll
me,
take your view on the
that-
energy issue properly.
sure.
This is still the point of view. We're trying to understand the budget. We haven't even spoken about the new tax initiative. So communication service tax went up from 6 to 9%. There were 3 new taxes: energy debt recovery, energy fund levy, and also the price stabilization and recovery levy. There's also a road fund that's gone up. But then the very irksome luxury vehicle tax was scrapped. We'll discuss that when we come back. Stay with us.
Politics, democracy is expensive, that's a fact. I mean, it's not on the scale of what we do here, but also, whether you like it or not, there's a problem with it. But then also, I think, per where I said, that if the NDC wasn't in opposition, they may not have put this amount at this level.
Get the backstory of the major news stories on press conference. Hear from the editors and reporters behind the biggest stories of the week.
People that look, I have seen. There was a time I got to that curve and I saw blood, pool of blood on the streets, and you could sense or you could see that something gory had taken place, and there are no lights, and we can't continue to.
Press conference every Sunday at 8 p.m. with Duke Mensa Opoku, only on City TV.
Welcome back. This is still The Point of View. My guest, Deputy Minister for Finance in charge of Budget, Honorable Abena Osei-Asare, and also Fifi Kwete, former Minister for Agri, former Minister for many portfolios, now MP for Ketu South. He's in his last term. He says he's tired. He's going home. And of course, Leslie Dwight Mensah, an economist with IFS. Leslie, I didn't even let you finish. So you said, number one, you were intrigued by the 5.1 billion. You wanted an explanation. You also showed me figures to show that 900 million is going to interest payments.
That's right.
Do you understand this whole take or pay controversy? And where do you sit on that? The fact that we've had to make a 5.1 billion payment to energy sector because of bad deals the NDC went into, take or pay for gas. We are only paying for 60% of we are only using 6% of the capacity of the energy we are paying for, which the finance minister tried to talk about. Is that something you understand?
Well, as I said earlier, not into significant detail, and we would need the government to give us some more detail to convince us, that indeed we need to spend 5.1 billion cedis, to see of these contracts. But it brings up, the whole issue of fiscal opacity. The fact that we had these contingent liabilities in the energy sector that were never told to the representatives of the people, never before said to anybody, and all of a sudden they've been thrust on us, okay? And we have this culture, of the budget, not fully capturing the exposures of the government, as well as the actual fiscal operations that the government has been engaging in, And this is one example of them, issues about, arrears, what is the size of the government arrears? They never tell us in the budget statements, okay?
That's incorrect.
What is the size of contingent liabilities across the different sectors which the government is exposed to? We never get to learn about these things until some bill crystallizes and it has to be paid, So for me, that's an important lesson we have to pick. The fact that we should see total fiscal openness so that the representatives of the people and the people themselves can understand in totality the exposures of the government as well as the actual fiscal operations that we are engaged in.
So, Abena, you are introducing 3 new taxes. The communication service tax is going up from 6 to 9%. You're introducing a road fund levy, or not introducing, increasing the road fund levy, the energy debt recovery levy, and also the price stabilization recovery levy. Why? Because I recall, as Fifi said, these were described as nuisance taxes in 2017. In fact, the special petroleum tax came for special mention. You reduced it marginally. We thought you cleared the whole thing, but you didn't. So why are you even touching these? And then you are scrapping the luxury vehicle tax rather, which seems like the one the rich people rather pay. Because I don't have a luxury vehicle, but you MPs do. So the two of us here, we don't have luxury. The two of you have 4-wheel drives. You've reduced that tax for yourself. And we who buy petrol with Kana CDs, we don't have coupon. You are increasing the fuel for us. And the two of you are going to enjoy.
Fifi.
No, I mean, that's the way to present it, right? Or is that not the way to present
it? That's incorrect. The luxury taxes, cuts across.
It's a tax for a luxury.
Maybe it's the name, but it cuts across. You had people from all walks of life. Remember, people even came to the Ministry of Finance to demonstrate and then to pick it and tell us that look here, we all in that bracket. So it's not just MPs, just 275 MPs, but it's the population at large. And we listened to the sentiments and we felt that let's scrap that and do more of compliance and see if, and we believe that with that we can increase.
Is it that you didn't get anything from it? Why is it? Because people complained last year, but I didn't take it away.
No, we brought it just last year. Yes, in the
so you are listening, government.
Like I told you from the beginning, we do listen and we also do our checks and our balances and we feel that this is the best time to.
But do you know what people think about your communication service tax increment from 6 to 9%? That touches everybody. Yes. And the telcos would certainly pass it on to us. It's called talk tax.
We are faced with so many challenges in the security area, the cyber crime, and money laundering, and all those things. And these are some of the things that the increase is going to address. And recently, some banks were attacked. these cyber crimes and things like that. And Bernard, you need funds. I'm looking at what is going on around the world. You need funds to address.
But let the banks pay for their own safety. Why is that?
It is not just about.
They make profit when we don't have anything. So why should we pay for their safety?
It's not just about banks. Bernard, cyber crime and these things. It's not related to the banks only. I mean, it's all over and it's happening. And let me tell you that drastic, situations demands drastic measures. I mean, we have a bill. I mean, this energy bill staring at us in the face with a lot of take or pay. Agreements. And for now, we have been able to do something about it. For some of them, we have renegotiated. Others, we have halted it. And we are still in negotiations with other IPPs and other agreements. But for now, those that have crystallized, we will have to pay. And how do we do that? This is where we believe that we can find some revenues, to clear that.
But the MDC will say to you that they brought the ESLA bond, which has generated close to 30 billion in the past.
No, 3 billion.
3 billion, forgive me. 3 billion since it was
a year.
Yeah, since it was brought in.
Yeah. Every year.
How long has it been? Like 4 years, right?
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah.
So why hasn't the ESLA bond and the money it is brought in been enough to cater for these liabilities in the energy sector?
Bernard, when we inherited the reins of government, there was some arrears that we had to take care of, and others that were still mounting. And clearly, we were able to raise some bonds, close to about 6 billion, to clear some of these arrears. But looking at what is in the IPPs that we have to pay, it is something that is running. We're still using some of these power plants, even though, we have excess capacity of more than 2,000. And we still have to pay, especially with the take or pay. Whether you use or you don't use, you still pay because the plant is sitting there. And so certainly these are difficult times. Drastic measures will have to be taken to solve these things. I don't think Ghanaians want to go back to the era of doomsday. And we believe that this is for now. As we try to abrogate some of the contracts, as we try to renegotiate those that we can renegotiate at their risk, this is the opportunity to do something.
There was a hint in there that you felt you could face judgment there because the finance minister quoted Martin Luther King where he said, if you fight a bad law, you are the one who respects the law. So I guess government is bracing itself for some challenges, i.e. the companies may not be happy. Like ENI, that you are saying, because they've signed an agreement.
Yes.
Sanctity of contracts is very important for international agreements. A new government has come into power and he's saying we don't want this, we want to make it take and pay. So you're bracing yourself up for possible suits and judgment debts and all that.
No, Bernard, Ghana is a lower middle income country. We have a lot of issues with our infrastructure that we need to address. And you look at Ghana paying close to 600 million every year for power that you're not using, when you can use this money to increase the number of children that you feed every day, where you can use this money to put up the roads and the things that are lacking in this country. Can you say that you will sit down and allow Ghanaians to pay this money? For some of the contracts, it has about 5, 6, 7 years duration. Would you say you are going to cough up all this money for 7 good years? Sit down and fold your arms?
Let me come back to this. So, Fifi, you say the government has brought back the taxes you complain about, but I still can't get my head around why would you pay for power that you are not using? The finance minister says 2,300 MW of installed capacity has been contracted on a take-or-pay basis. On average, less than 40% of the contracted take-or-pay capacity is actually used, meaning that we basically throw away money by paying for the remaining 60% of excess capacity we do not actually consume. And as if that's not bad enough, he says Ghana has contracted about 750 MSCAF per day by 2023. Current demand is 250, projected to rise to 450 and 500. All things being equal, there's an oversupply of 200 to 300 MSCAF per day. And you have contracted 640 on take-or-pay basis. Meaning that we have to pay whether we use it or not. Even if you are doing take-or-pay, why do you have to go above? What kind of demand planning did you do? To go for take-or-pay, that makes us pay between $550 to $850 million a year. That sounds absolutely irresponsible.
You know, that's what you call having the luxury to pass that kind of judgment when a government had achieved the unprecedented feat of resolving the problem of energy insufficiency in the history of our country. Today, because that has been resolved and it's no more a problem, we now can have the luxury to look back and say, how irresponsible were you? When the pressure was on, and this country actually needed to be able to get energy to resolve that problem that was literally crippling the whole of the country, holding back the whole economy, holding back industry, holding back every other sector. At that moment, we didn't realize that this country actually needed real help as far as energy is concerned. But that's just even one part of it. Listen, if you have what you call excess capacity, it is excess only to the extent that you yourself have not been able to generate the means by which that power can be used. Let me give you a typical example. During the 8th year of the NDC, on an average basis, every single year, we expanded electricity assets by a minimum of 4% every year. Because there are so many communities in this country today that still want electricity. When you are unable to do so, you have excess capacity. We were making sure we were expanding electricity to every nook and cranny. So naturally, there will be
the cost at which you are paying for that power means that a lot of Ghanaians can't even afford it. Because if you are saying that you solve the problem, I agree. But if you are paying 650 million more than you need to pay, it means that even if the power is available, you can't pay for it.
Ben, what do you do when your hydro energy is operating at 30%? Akosombo contributed about 1,200 megawatts. It was operating for not just 1 year, not 2, minimum 3-4 years, was operating at 30% capacity. Bui Dam was contributing nothing. So in terms of hydro, you were getting nothing. What choice do you have? You have no option but to go the way of what you call thermal. And this thermal comes in the form of IPPs. And this IPP, being take or pay, is a global feature. It's not limited to Ghana. It's not limited to Africa. It's a global feature. That's what I'm saying. That now that we are out of the crisis, we can look back now. It's like, well, you've crossed the river. Now you can look back and insert in the crocodile. At the time when you needed to cross that river, you didn't.
So this is the best you could have done in the circumstance.
Absolutely, and I'm telling you, this is a regular feature of IPPs. It's not like it's not like an irregular.
You get excess gas that you don't need.
No, you don't seem to get it. At that moment when we were getting these IPPs, the whole hydro side was not in operation, and that's a massive. What you call, in terms of that's a massive shortfall. So this was not excess capacity at the time we were getting them because the hydro was not in operation. They have been lucky. That's of course in terms of the level of Akosombo Dam now has come up. So now they don't need as much power as we needed. Because at that time you actually had no option but to use.
Did you put in place plans to build gas plants to make use of the excess gas?
But just hold on.
No, now that we are here.
But that's the point I was making, and you're not allowing me. If you are allowing me.
No, I want direct answers. You are going long. We don't have all day. So I'm saying, did you put in place? Did you put in place?
Let the viewers be the judge as to whether I'm making a point or not.
I'm just asking, did you put in place any power plants?
I'm building a point.
To make use of the excess gas. Simple question.
I am building a point. If you
are not here to give a press conference, you are answering my questions.
Listen to me.
So just answer the question.
MPP government has told everybody that this country actually is in the process of becoming an exporter of power. On what basis do you think they were making that? Because of the power that is available. That's why they will be able to take it out of this country. They were clearly not talking about taking the hydropower out of this country, no. They're talking about the fact that we now have excess capacity, therefore that excess capacity has to be exported. That's one. If we truly were expanding this economy, and they've actually been talking about growth. If truly this economy were growing, I'm talking the real economy, not the economy that is dependent on crude oil, that they are hiding and claiming that somehow they are doing some miracle. If the real economy were expanding and what you call industry were actually being established as they claim they were establishing, there'll be far more need for the power. Now, if you are unable to do all this, and the power remains because you are simply too incompetent, you are simply too lazy to be able to get it done, you don't come and be blaming your predecessor government. That's why I told you right from the word go that listen, when you come into office, you take what you call assets, and you take liabilities. You don't enjoy the asset. Remember that some time ago, they actually were even claiming that they were the one who resolved the doomsday. They were basically taking the asset that were left by the NDC while running away from the liabilities. You don't do it that way.
Fair enough. You've answered the part on the excess power. I was talking about the gas, but you choose not to respond to that.
No, but the gas, remember that one of the major reasons why we were even able to have tariff reduction in their, I think, first year, getting to the latter part of the first year, is because of the what you call availability of gas. That gas is what has reduced the cost of power to the extent that they can actually take it down for the people of Ghana to benefit. If it were not for that massive investment we did in terms of the trouble gas processing, we actually would have had power being even far more expensive than we are getting now. So you can't actually say that actually was a discounting at all.
I have a few comments for you. I'll take another break. When I come back, I'll give you your turn, Mr. Leslie Mensah. So we are trying to plow our way through this very interesting budget with the two politicians and the economy. Stay with us.
Environmentally friendly, affordable, and quality fertilizers, committed to improving crop production and ensuring food security through improved yields in Ghana. This is Glofert Limited, a wholly owned Ghanaian company with a global outlook. Ghana's leading name in fertilizer production, Glofert has built a state-of-the-art 120 metric tons per hour fertilizer blending factory, the largest in Ghana. This is able to blend all types of NPK to the specific requirements of farmers. With a 45,000 metric ton warehouse, trust Glofert Limited for all types of NPKs, urea, sulfate of ammonia, potassium nitrate, calcium nitrate, boron, and many more. Glofert is currently participating in the Planting for Food and Jobs initiative under the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Call us on 0544 339 513 or 0243 512 171. Locate our head office at number 2 Ni Amon Lane, East Legon, Accra. Email sales@glofert.com. Glofert, growing growth.
We spice up your mornings with culturally enriched conversations, social interviews, and policy-oriented discussions that will keep you updated on the progress of the nation. Let your voice be heard with the hashtag #BreakfastDaily.
It's actually a good thing and healthy to be okay in your own skin. Not because you don't have the options, but it's also healthy to be able to say, listen, I'm going to the movies by myself. I'm going to the restaurant by myself.
Join us for Breakfast Daily, only on City TV. Join the Breakfast Daily team Monday through Fridays from 7:30 a.m. to 10.
Welcome back to The Point of View. Here are some of your comments. Basoa Tabi Emmanuel says, I don't think government is managing the economy. Sorry, I don't think managing the economy is only about talking or being on top of issues. Economic reports and figures as at now puts our country in a good position. Solomon Akazabre says, I was expecting that projects would have been completed by this time, but all this government knows is taxes without any justified results. Dumega Hateka Ati30. It looks like somebody from your constituency.
It's Ati30.
Forgive. How exactly would 10 digital address, which you can generate 100 different addresses standing at the same place, address revenue issues like the finance minister wants us to believe? Seteshen says, let's take the debate to a higher notch. Trying to make political capital of every situation is stifling our development agenda. Hi, Ben. I'm very sad that the MPP government is slowly paving way for NDC to take over in 2020. Vida from West Fijai. Bernard, I think this budget will not help at all. From China Kwamu. Is that your name or your country? Godswill in Accra. Bernard, the most annoying tax that has been increased is the telco tax from 6 to 9%. Already, our network services are not helping us. And government is still increasing it at the expense of the quality we have. Berima Kubaja, Gini. Taxes, including those of the MPP described as nuisance, have been increased because government is struggling with revenues. They made all kinds of noise in opposition, but are suffocating the ordinary Ghanaian with quack governance. I thought they were going to cancel Mary and car power the very day they came. This government is a huge mess. Bernard, please find out from the Deputy Minister what will be the net revenue effect if Ghana decides to export the excess energy capacity to our neighboring countries. Also, what is our energy demand projection for the next 5 to 10 years? And don't we think we need the excess capacity during the period? Osman Issa from Accra. Leslie, what are your quick thoughts on these energy debates and the taxes? One tax gone, 3 or 4 new in the petroleum sector, telco sector gone up as well. What are your quick thoughts?
Well, the taxes were inevitable because the policy and practice of the government since coming into office have been to expand government, and the role of government in our lives, And there's quite a lot that they are doing, You know about all their initiatives, the free SHS policy, the 1D, 1F, where tax exemptions have been granted and all that. Unfortunately, the revenue policy and strategy at the outset did not quite match this ambition on the expenditure side, okay? So that now they are having to kind of bite the bullet, okay? Because in the first year, they awarded tax cuts, and our work has shown that the main underperforming areas of revenue in the last 2 years have actually been the areas that received or benefited, or maybe suffered, is rather the word, the areas that suffered the tax cuts. Now, in response, the government was initially careful to protect the poor, okay, and avoided taxes that were broad-based and affected everyone. So they opted to target the tax hikes. There was the top marginal income tax rate hike, there was the luxury vehicle tax hike, but such taxes that are targeted to specific groups tend to be more susceptible to tax dodging. And the luxury vehicle tax, suffered that problem. So that now they're doing the final thing that could be done, which is to move to a broad-based tax, that affects everybody. Okay, and it's
back to square one, essentially.
Yeah, and it's more
back
efficient.
To square one.
Now, I say these things without prejudice to the value of the policies they have implemented. This is discussing the public finance stress that we're seeing from this overambition on the expenditure side. So the tax rises were inevitable because the alternative, given what I've seen in the public finances, is that we would have to borrow. Okay, in the first 2 years of the administration, although they wanted to do a lot, they were restrained partly by the IMF program. Okay, they decided in the 2019 budget to make a big push. So they set a deficit target of 4.2% of GDP, now increased to 4.5% of GDP. Now, in seeking to do that big push, okay, because the revenue policy has been misaligned, with the attempt to make that big push, they are having to now tackle revenue with broad-based tax measures.
That makes sense. You have a minute each to wrap up. What should Ghanaians take home from this budget that has been read in a minute?
That the hardship on them is actually going to increase.
Oh.
That, for example, a gallon of petrol is at least going to see almost close to 1 cedi addition. Remember, at the time MPP came into office in at the beginning of 2017, the gallon then was, I think, about 14. It's moved subsequently about 24. This is additional almost 1 cedi, and that's massive.
Wow.
That's massive, and the effect that has on everything, not just on transport, but on food and everything. The direct.
So Ghanaians are going to suffer more.
So naturally, much more hardship is going to be imposed on them. In this day and age, when you have hardships, Ghanaians take a lot of comfort in going on social media, sharing and laughing at jokes on that one as well has now been hit. So, and that one actually is affecting many more people. So it's like on both levels.
Social media going to talk around.
You're not safe anywhere. Wherever you pass, you are in trouble. And to be honest, I think generally Ghanaians just need to have this massive awakening that our friends really have just dance around, and today the reality they cannot.
Is it on them? You have a minute to respond
and
to
the fact that they've actually had the hugest revenues in the history of our country, not just in terms of taxation, the highest, but also in terms of borrowing. No government in our history has had the kind of huge amount of money that they've had. Today we're talking about at the close of mid-year 204 billion cedis from 120 billion. 204. That's almost doubling it. And still, in spite of that, you are still struggling. You want to come and use NDC to justify.
All right, thank you. Just a final comment. You have a minute just to tell us He says we are going to suffer more. Why are you making us suffer more?
Thank you very much. In summary, we sought to address the issues with 2 or 3 tax increments. And one had to do with the fuel prices, which has gone up by 90 pesos per gallon, and then the CST as well. And I think one of your people asked the question whether why can't we export some of the excess capacity? But it's so expensive that no country around us is willing to pay at the rate at which we would want to sell, because what they are selling to us is quite expensive.
Are you sure
and
about
also
that?
some
Go
of
to other countries and see the cost of power.
Some of the IPPs have been renegotiated, and for Ameri, we have been able to renegotiate it, reduce it by 13%. And for some that are too expensive, we are thinking of cancelling it cancelling it entirely. So what we are saying is this: this is it's not the natural situation here. We have 10 or 15 IPPs that we're still negotiating, and we need to keep the lights on. So what do? We need to find innovative ways of meeting Ghanaians halfway and then making sure that the lights are on.
So when would
we all know the
for
financial
Ghanaians?
sector as well. Government is also spending close to 12 billion. And what would have happened? 2.6 million depositors would have lost their money. So these are all the things that we believe that we are coming to. We have brought. That's why we brought the mid-year budget to share with Ghanaians and for us all together. See it as a big problem and help us all address
Thank you very much.
adequately.
Abena Osei is the Deputy Minister for Finance in charge of budget. Fifi Kwete is Member of Parliament for K2 South, former Minister of Agric, former Deputy Minister of Finance, and Leslie Dwight Mensah, an economist with the Institute of Fiscal Studies. Gentlemen, thank you for being on the show. Lady, thank you for being on the show. My name is Bernard Avile. Stay with CCTV. Good night.
Point of View is brought to you in association with Stanbic Bank, moving forward, and Glofert Company Limited, growing growth.